All right. So welcome. I'm Steve Morris with the Oregon Technology Business Center. And with me is Bill with PSU. And we'll get Bill introduced here a little in just a sec. I want to welcome you to this program on capstone programs for Portland State University. Quickly, if you haven't heard of OTBC, we're an incubator for tech startup companies in Beaverton. Have the highest rated mentoring program in the state, and we have space for startups now. So if you're a tech startup and you're looking for some office space and some mentoring and great workshops, we'd certainly love to talk to you. You can get a hold of us just through the contact form at otbc.org. And with that, let's move right into the program for today about PSU Capstone. I will turn it over to Bill, let him introduce himself and go from there, and then we'll switch to some slides.
All right. Well, thank you, Steve. I'm Bill Jones. I am on faculty at PSU School of Business, and I direct and coordinate the Capstone program. I'm going to go through that today. We have a very interesting process that we run through, and we're certainly looking for new clients to come in, and I'll go into the details of how one does that and actually how successful it has been. Nevertheless, why don't we kind of move on, Steve? We can move into the slides. We're posting those slides, so you should be able to see those directly.
Yeah, the slides are posted both, I think, in a note in the Google Hangout as well as on the OTBC website page where it talks about this event. Either place you can get a link to the slides so that you'll have his information. And if you're online, there is an ability to ask questions. There should be a question bar there over on the side. So we'll try to keep track of that also. And with that, we'll switch over to those slides and take it away, Bill.
Excellent. Again, I'm Bill Jones, coordinate the Capstone program, which is an undergraduate program that the School of Business is running now. It's into its 4th year. We've had over 200 clients. And kind of the first kind of history of this is important just for me to give you context around which this program runs. 3 years ago, we decided that we would try to create a capstone program, realizing that graduates of our program, seniors, didn't have a lot of experience working in the professional field and in their careers. And we thought if we could bring in outside clients, have them work with the faculty member and students, they could put together a project, exercise their core competencies as a team, and deliver value. At least that was our theory, that it would deliver value to the clients. So we've had it now for 3 years. We're on to our 4th year, as a matter of fact. And as I said, we've had over 200 clients. So what I would like to do is talk a little bit about what the program is, the types of clients that we have, the types of projects that we do, and then talk to you a little bit more about the process of getting involved. And finally, which is always the big question, is, well, what value is it to us, right? To you as a client. So really, what it is for the clients is, and this is really a critical importance, and you probably understand it from your own university training, is that what we're bringing is value to the outside clients that we have, based upon a project defined by the client. It's not defined by the faculty member, not by me. I don't close the door and kind of hermetically seal and determine what assumptions that you have. What we do is it's free form. We're trying to get the students and we're trying to mimic kind of a real world situation with real world projects. So that's an important aspect. Students or seniors, it's typically their last class. We graduate between 700 and 750 students a year. Since it's required, they all come through our program. So they've all had that experience. Typically, as I said, their last class, so they've had all of their sort of academic and theoretical training, and now we're trying to do the applied clinical side of things, giving them that experience. We have 7 disciplines. We don't have majors. You get a business degree, but then you have a concentration, right? And so we have that, and I'll go into that. And then we also have some very specialized programs, which are certificates, and those all students can take a few extra classes, a little more concentration in a certain area, and they'll have those as part of their competencies they have. So our 7 disciplines that we have, or concentrations, are ones that you'd typically expect in a business school: accounting, finance, advertising, which is a rather unique side of this, management and leadership, of course, supply chain management, human resources, and the marketing. All of those are the typical ones. But then again, for concentrations, which we've had with our students, is we've got a food industry management program. We have an athletic and outdoor industry one, which you'd expect, given the fact is Nike and Adidas and Columbia Sportswear and just the mecca of the world for apparel design and outdoor wear. And then we've got a post-baccalaureate accounting certificate. Social innovation, we do a lot of work with nonprofits, social entrepreneurs, and so forth. Not only with our program here, but we have several different classes that we really focus on that mission-oriented type of business. We also have an international business certificate, and finally, one where we're very much encouraging the entrepreneurship. We have several different programs here. One of the reasons why I'm here at this incubator is precisely because of being able to recruit entrepreneurs on this program. Give you an example, kind of a range of the types of products that we deliver. This is strategic oriented, okay? So it's not doing it, implementing it. It is the side of the developing of the strategic recommendations and the process by which we go through this, getting this. We do, market plans are straightforward. They aren't straightforward in the sense of what you do, but that's an obvious, is being able to convince people to buy your services or your product or to be interested in following up on that. Market assessment issues really is kind of going into the market itself, the target marketing, being able to do forecasts, et cetera. Feasibility studies for products and services, we've done. All of these are examples where we've actually had, in some cases, multiple examples working with clients on that. Finance plan, accounting setup, basic stuff is a lot for entrepreneurs who are very interested in and passionate about what they're doing, but may not understand sort of the accounting side of things. And so we have accounting majors or accounting disciplines there, and we've put together accounting programs to set them up. Supply chain analysis, anyway, hitting a lot of this area. Finances are finite, right? And so it's very clear that we have to do a lot of financial work. And I'd say that almost every project we've done has had a financial impact that we've been able to bring in with a finance major to do this. SEO, which is again kind of the optimization side of things with marketing, business expansion strategy, everything from what I like to say is launching a product and services all the way to an exit strategy, right? The whole kind of business cycle continuum that we've worked with. So what are the sectors we've worked with? Again, I mentioned that we've worked with over 200 clients now. And so just here's a kind of a list of a range of types of projects that we've done with clients from the education side, from the athletic side. We've even done venture capital, worked with a venture capital firm who's kind of trying to open up a different area. A lot of financial firms, actually, faith-based, entertainment, athletics, transport, retail, lots of retail that you would expect, professional and legal and financial services that we've had. So it's a fairly broad set of projects, and this is done purposely because what we're trying to do is when we cast our net or when I do recruiting, I'm looking for the broadest number of clients that we possibly can. We don't have necessarily a specialty, so we want to have our students who may have different interests be able to come in, see clients, select a client they'd like to work with, and it might be very different than someone that they're as a classmate. So what we're looking for always is a diverse set of clients, a range of clients of various types, and I'll go into some of the details on that as we get further down. Here's some examples, specific examples of clients that we've had. We've worked with high-tech firms, and we've done code version control firms, market plan for and confirmation of business assumptions, right? Just a straightforward, what is this going to be if we're trying to open up our services? What are the assumptions that we have to make with the business? How are we going to be able to make this business operate, run? We've done cloud storage service. In fact, one of your clients, one of the members of OTBC was one of our clients, and I'll get to specifically to what we did for them. Construction company, product manufacturing, a fair number of nonprofit organizations. We have probably between 30 and 40% of them are nonprofits, so they're mission driven. They offer big challenges to our students because typically most students are working with for-profit organizations and firms, and so this forces them to think about a mission statement, and the strategic recommendations may very much be driven by what that mission statement is. In fact, there could be a conflict between most ideal kind of strategic recommendation and the mission statement. So the mission statement trumps that. So that's why we have NPOs. We work with clockmaker, theater groups, film groups, several medical clinics or medical sides of work, manufacturers of apparel as well as of golf gear, online video. Again, this is just 17 examples of over 200. So it just gives you an idea of there. I'd be happy if you have specific questions to answer those with other ones that we've had that may be more in line with what you might be looking for. Here, the OTBC. We've had 5 clients to date, going back to the winter of 2013. These are individuals that either were members and received email that Steve Morris had sent out that came to one of our presentations, or one of my presentations, or actually were tenants in here. Actually, Steve Morris was a tenant last spring. And what was good for us on this is that someone who's actually running an incubator could actually see hands-on what it is that we do. We were looking at ways for him to be, a marketing plan, financial plan for growth, and so forth. So if you have any questions dealing with that side, he probably can very much help you understand that if you have questions beyond that. We've had people that have had, online app development. We did marketing for a Location Sentry Corp, which was a geolocation scrambling app that oftentimes when you are using a GPS, it's pinging back to the person, or excuse me, the business the app that's running it, and this scrambles that location, so they don't know exactly where you are. However, it's accurate, meaning what it is when you're looking at what you see on your app. So that was one that was there that came out of this program. We had a game manufacturer, Elbowfish. Palo Moreto Novella was formerly Cloudy Days, was also one that came from here. She just won, I say she's the president and founder, just won OEN's Angel Oregon, $256,000, and was a client of ours fall of 2013. And then finally, online business development program. So here's just an example of entrepreneurs that we've had from this particular organization. So the question really is, how do you get involved, and how is this achieved? So program, as I said, been running for 3 years. We have 3 of our terms are 11-week terms. So it's an 11-week project. Summertime is 8 weeks, which is much shorter. They do the same amount of work, but it's a little more concentrated, but we do offer it year-round. Students in the class, we have approximately 35 students in our classes, and the team sizes, because we have about 3 to 4 clients per class, is between 10 and 12, right? So with having 10 and 12, which is important, is that we have different majors or different concentrations that are represented there. And they get to select the client that they would like to work with. Although the faculty member plays God and makes the final determination as to that, because we want to make sure that the appropriate concentrations or disciplines are represented for each one of our clients. Okay, so they work directly with the client, and what I mean by that is, after there's a selection and the team is formed, the teams themselves act as a consultant team. They appoint a single point of contact, who then contacts the client, and from then on, they're independent from the faculty, right? They make the choices, they make the decisions as to how to move forward. We work with them in our sounding boards as faculty members, but we don't control what it is that they do. Again, the idea is we're trying to simulate real-world experience that they have. Although, as I said, we do have faculty members that our sounding boards can give advice, but we don't control that. So they work directly with the client. They determine what the type of project will be, and that's an important side, is that we have 11 weeks. And oftentimes what the clients are asking for in their presentation and their application, which I'll get to, is much more than 11 weeks worth of work. What we emphasize is critical path thinking with a timeline of 11 weeks. They have to make a decision as to what it is that they can do reasonably well with sort of depth. That is more vertical work that they do rather than broad and shallow. Broad and shallow may look good on paper, but if you were to make a decision, especially a financial one, with less information, you'd be less inclined to make that decision. So what we do is focus on fewer activities, more in-depth activities that they have, which you, when they make strategic recommendations, are ones that you would feel more confident on making those decisions and following through the implementation. So that's a really important aspect of it. They do a proposal and a scope of work. And the proposal, as I mentioned, and the scope of work are both based upon your the client's goals that they've developed working with the students over a couple of weeks as they develop the project. And then that scope of work, of course, is like any scope of work. It's task-based, very discrete. It has a purpose for each one of the tasks. It has a description of exactly what they're going to do. And it has two important things: the deliverable that's going to come out of that, or a product that will come out of that, as well as, more importantly, the schedule when they'll be done. And the importance of the schedule is to make sure that the client is prepared to receive a deliverable, because they'll have a time to review and make comments and send that back. So if they know the schedule, when deliverables are going to happen, they'll be prepared for being able to do so. There is also a communication structure. That communication structure will be made, of course, represented in the scope of work, but we also say that there will be a weekly progress report that comes from the team to the client. In case the client is not in touch with them for the week, it's not like they haven't worked at all. They have to send a project progress report based upon what the scope of work is, what they've done in the past, what they're anticipating to do, and whether they've encountered any unforeseen conflicts in something that might have an impact on the scope of work that they're doing. There's a final report and a final presentation. But before that time, there are several different presentations that take place. And we are requesting that all clients be able to come into the class for up to 45 minutes, up to 5 times. The average is about 3. But let me just sort of go over what those are before they do the final presentation. The first time that you're in is when the client comes in and presents to the class, to the section, what it is that they do, what it is that they are seeking from the students, and then to be able to take questions from the students, right? That's the first time that are there. So that 45 minutes really is the time where they're deciding whether they want to go with this client or with another client, and so forth, show their preference. The other presentations are by the students back to the client. And these are times, again, in class where the students will be making a 10 to 15-minute presentation of those 45 minutes, and the remainder is the Q&A. The purpose of this is several-fold. On the one hand, it allows the students to act as a professional presenting to their client, and their ability then to take questions, be able to respond to those in a professional manner. So that gives them the professional experience. On the other hand, oftentimes in those presentations, while the client will have already received a technical memo on what it is they're going to talk about, this is a time where there can be direct interaction between the client asking hard questions and the students being able to either respond or be able to ask questions back. So it's this repartee that takes place, which is really good. So there's several of those that will take place, and they're based upon what the scope of work is. And again, I can't say exactly what they'll be, but I can say that one will be on competition and uniqueness about the client themselves and how they can position themselves as a unique operator of a service or a product that they're going to launch. The second one is dealing with the financial impact, right? So what are the financial impacts there as they begin to think about towards the end of the project? What are going to be the alternatives that are going to be developed and then compared before they come up with strategic recommendations. So so there's a financial one, there's a competitive one, and then there's several other ones that might take place. The final one, of course, is dealing with your strategic recommendations. Those come out of the work that they've done over the scope of work over those past 11 weeks or past 10 weeks by that time. And what they're doing is they're going to be able to develop a final report. A draft will come to the clients for review. I do the same review, or the faculty member will do that, but since they aren't the knowledge experts, they're more along the lines of the rationale and whether they've presented themselves in a way that really does make sense, right? You know, for that logical path they have to take. But what they do is they'll send that to you, and you'll be a draft during that period of time that you'll review and comment on. And at the same time, they'll come in and you'll come in and they'll make a presentation. Again, 10 to 15 minutes, maybe up to 20. The remainder of that time is Q&A. They'll leave there. If there are any comments, they'll build those back into the final report. Your comments that you send back and the one of the faculty member get built in, and you get a final product. So it's a consultant report, so it's relatively short, certainly on the body of it. The appendix might be longer because there's supporting evidence for that. So that's how that project works, and then it closes out on the 11th week. Oh, I might add too, as well, is that what I do after the project is closed out, and I'll get to that, is I follow up with a questionnaire. We want a post-client experience. It happens almost immediately after the end of the project itself. What we really have that's important is the project's over. 11 weeks are done. You've got a project with lots of recommendations in there, and you're saying is, I'm the same group of people that I was 11 weeks before that time. I have no more time to be able to implement these suggested recommendations than I did the first day that we were open. And so what we offer, which is it kind of has a dual benefit, is a follow-on internship program. So imagine this. You've got a client team that's worked for 11 weeks on this project as a consultant team. And some of the students, most of them graduate, but some of them don't. But let's just say you want to maybe look into more carefully an implementation plan of the strategic recommendations. What we have is an internship program where some of the teams members of you as the kind of the consultant team could come and work for you as an intern, free charge, of course, for the next 11 weeks. Either implementing or looking more carefully into the alternatives that have been suggested there. So we have someone who understands the strategy, understands your company for the first 11 weeks, then comes on and works directly with you to potentially implement those. So you've got 6 months worth of a person. Looks great on paper for the student because they can put that on their resume if they've had 6 months worth of work. But nevertheless, they can also work directly with you, offset some of the resources that you would otherwise be constrained to try to implement. So it's great. It's a really good program. We've had about 25. Not, as I said, you know, most people graduate, and so we don't have we can't always rely on having a student intern, but that's a great program when it kind of fits. So now we have to talk a little bit about, well, how many clients do we need a year? How many do I need to recruit? So we average between 60 and 80 clients a year, and it depends on the number of sections that we have. So it varies by the term. So this is the number of clients that we kind of estimate that we have. Between 15 and 18, smallest number of sections are in the summertime. We have between 4 and 5 sections during the summer. So between 15 to 12 to 15 in the summer. And then it grows by that. Fall and winter are about the same number, 15 to 21 students that we need, clients that we need. And finally, in the spring, students typically still graduate in June, and so we need up to 30 clients that are there, which might be around 10 sections that we offer on this stuff. So, as I said, we've had over 200 to date that we have there. So the question now comes is that this program, you know, it's outlined fairly well. I think we've got good faculty that are teaching it. The students are really good. And I want to say one more thing about the student side of things is, while we have students, we graduated between 700 and 750 students, our average age of our seniors are much older than a normal senior going to college. Instead of it being 21 and 22, the average age of our graduating seniors is 28. 6 years older there. It's constantly, we have, because we're an urban university, we attract a lot of students that are working full-time, that are older, have families, much more mature, that are coming back to school to finish off their degree. And what makes this really, I think, unique is they bring with them their own maturity, their own experiences. Many of them are actually working in professional fields, and they're bringing in those experiences and that kind of perception into the class. We do, of course, have the 22-year-olds, so you've got people that could be parents of the 22-year-olds working on the same team there. And it's a very, well, one is, it's from my standpoint, is I see these being a much richer experience when you have those older students coming in and thinking. I think for the client, it brings value as well because of that sort of more mature position, the experiences that they have. So that's I think a plus on that side. So the vetting program and how we recruit. I'm recruiting year-round. I need to do so because I have to be able to recruit over at least 80 clients a year. We have turnover rate where we've selected clients to participate in a term, and they've had to drop out for one reason or another. Health reason, they've pivoted, they've gone a different direction, it's no longer relevant. So that's my job, is to go out, and I teach in the program, but I also have to go out and recruit. So the way we do it, we have an application process. It's fairly simple. You fill out an application. I send an application to you. It can be filled out on your computer and returned to me. Once I receive it, I'll review it. And if I have any questions based on what I see on there, I'll get back in touch with you. The main information and the most important information is contact information, a bit on your, what sector you work in, how long you've been in business. And then the other parts, most important, is what it is you do. And the most important part of all is what it is you're seeking from the clients, or excuse me, from the consultant group. We have an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement. We recognize that a lot of our clients are concerned that students may ask for and request very sensitive and confidential information. So we've had, for this entire program, I worked with the General Counsel for PSU, a NDA, non-disclosure agreement form that we have. It's one page, fairly simple. We all sign it, meaning the students sign an addendum that they're going to participate in this. They're held to it by that. I sign it and the client signs it. What's important is in this process is we're trying to give protection to the client. We also have as a learning goal is that these students are oftentimes going to be signing these NDAs in their career, right? So we're trying to get them used to that and so forth on that. We want to make sure they understand that they've got a legal obligation not to divulge any information unless given written permission to do so directly from the client. Okay, so that's where we have that there. We've probably about 70% of our clients ask for one. I send it automatically and actually use one. We've not had one client use their own NDA. They've all used the one that we've had. And I keep it totally open. If they want to use their own NDA, I give it to the general counsel and they deal with that side. So that's the side of there. We've also not had one student not sign the addendum that goes along with that. While I can't force them to do so, it's all voluntary. All students have been able to do this after reading it. So I think it's a fair document there. Deadlines. Deadlines, once you fill out and you become eligible, meaning you filled out your application, is usually about 6 weeks before the term. And I do that because what I'm looking for is enough time to, one, review the applications with a committee for selection and make a selection up to about a month before the next term begins. So the faculty member who selects the 3 clients that they want in their section have enough time to contact those clients and help them discuss how they're going to teach it, when they would like them to be in class, and then the clients themselves have enough time to be able to adjust their schedule should there be conflicts and all. And if I was to wait too long, then it may be difficult to ensure that we could get that kind of thing coordinated. So that's about 6 weeks ahead of time. So we've got spring would be right around the 20th of February, which would give us about 6 weeks before the spring term begins, which is the beginning of April. And all the others, again, just about 6 weeks before. So once we get those ones, we review all of the applications, and then we make a decision based upon several different criteria, selection criteria. Once you're eligible, you will be a client. The issue is we have more clients for any term that we need. So I can't guarantee that you will be a client any specific term, but I can guarantee that within 3 terms that you will be selected, or up to a 6-month delay. What we look like, what we look for in our selection process is several. What we start with is we don't compete, obviously, with professional consulting firms or finance firms and management firms. Obviously, there's a different niche. These are students that haven't had direct experience. Many of them have, maybe, but we can't guarantee that. So what we're trying to do is make sure that since they don't have experience on there, we've got to be able to determine how it is that they're going to be moving forward and preparing for this project. And when we look at the review of this, what we say is we want to serve the underserved. What we mean by that is 2 things. One is you could be a minority business, women-owned business, or more importantly is couldn't afford the services of a professional consulting firm, right? I mean, so that's based upon that reason that we have that. But that doesn't mean if you could, that you're automatically out. And that's really important because there are other criteria. So we then look at corporate organization. Are you a nonprofit, public agency, for-profit? If you're a for-profit, what type of category are you in? Are you publicly traded? Are you a C, an S Corp, sole proprietor, LLC, et cetera? They all offer challenges that are different to our students. If you're a nonprofit, what type of nonprofit are you? Are you 501(c)(3), 4, 5, 6? They all have different aspects of that. And if you're a public agency, are you a federal? Are you state or local? And we've worked with all of those there. And that's really important to see what type of corporate organization that they are. Another one is business cycle. Where are you in the business cycle? Are you at the end looking for an exit strategy? Do you have an idea? You're not even incorporated, and really looking for some great support on how you develop that. That's an important one. And then everything in between. Are you launching a new service or product and so forth? So that's a great sort of sense of the business cycle on where you are. Size of the business. Organization, and it's based upon number of employees, number of locations that you might have. It's retail, and revenue are all the factors that we kind of weigh and being able to select. Again, we're looking for a diverse range of clients that we have here. See the business sectors themselves that we have. Again, I just showed you on one of my earlier slides what are the sectors that you're in. So we're covering a whole gamut of stuff. We want, again, a huge wide range of types of sectors that we can pull from. And then finally, we look at a couple other different areas that may be less important, but they still are germane to this selection process. One is the types of questions that you're asking. What is the types of services that you are requesting? You can have similar sector businesses, maybe even the similar kind of business cycle, but at the same time, they're asking very different questions. So we're looking for a range of different questions and unique ones sometimes that we have. So that's a good one. And the other one is sometimes the faculty member may have knowledge expertise. Right. I am a consultant myself, been that way for about 35, 40 years in a particular area. And I think I can bring some really good expertise into various clients that we might have. So we may look for those people. It doesn't happen all the time for my particular area, but we do look for that. So and bringing in kind of the knowledge expertise of the faculty member, that really can help. It broadens the capabilities of the services they offer in the advice. They help the client, and they also help the student. So those are the selection criteria that we use. If you don't get selected, we then automatically roll you over, but you will be informed that it's coming into the next side. And we always start, although it's not first come, first serve, meaning if you get your application in, you're automatically going to be the first selected. But we do start looking at the oldest ones first. We want to make sure that we're giving them a fair shake on each one of the times that we look at this. Okay, so our expectations then of the clients is that they will be engaged, That means engagement you have to determine with your client, with your the project consultant group. They're not ones that I can determine, but you have to determine what it is that you can. We'd like you to be engaged as much as you feel comfortable doing so. And that will be determined, again, by the team that works with you and how they kind of set that up. And in their scope of work, it will say the communication structure. Again, I mentioned up to 5 times being in the class, each time 45 minutes. There are also going to be some deliverables to you. Not only a final draft deliverable, there may be some interim deliverables that they're going to need feedback. So some type of communication structure, either by email, face-to-face, they would very much like to, especially if you have a place where you do business and so forth, being able to have the team come by and see that. We're giving them that experience of hands-on, taste, touch, feel. All of our clients are within the greater Portland area. It's done on purpose because we want access to those clients, as opposed to the graduate program where oftentimes we have clients that are worldwide. We never really see them in person. We just deal with them like we're doing today on the Google Hangout. Okay. We also want the client to be able to give us feedback at the end of the project, and I'm going to get into that momentarily about that need to have that feedback. We've improved our program, we think, dramatically in the last 3 years, precisely because of the good feedback we have from clients, and we want to keep that up. It is constantly changing. We want to be up to date with what we're doing and what's of interest to that. And the final thing, which is most important of all, I want you to hire every single one of the students that work on your project. You sign an agreement on that. I'm joking. Okay, so that's in a nutshell. But everyone that I talk to always says, well, how do we know that it's worth my time? And that's a really important question, because you add up your time. You've got your own personal life, your own personal business, and so forth. And we're asking you to then voluntarily come in and participate in our program. And we have learning goals, of course, for our students. We think we deliver good value. The reason why I want you to fill the questionnaire out after every time that our clients have been a client of ours is it gives us feedback directly. It allows us to be able to evaluate whether we're staying on point with what we're doing and so forth. So it's a 9-question questionnaire. It's sent out almost immediately after the end of the term. But let me give you some feedback on this. We have about a 98% response rate, which is darn good on that, because I hound every single one of our clients that does not respond just to make sure they do. I need to have that feedback. And he does. Yes, Steve, you're quite right. It's there. Okay, so let me look a little bit at kind of the value on the monetary value, and then we'll talk about the overall project and so forth, some of the facts and figures that we have. Okay, so let's talk about the monetary value. We've done to date, as of actually the end of summer, not quite $500,000 worth of consulting over that year. It's added up to, this is as 134 projects that are reported on this part. And the average value comes out to about $3,200. It doesn't sound like a lot of money, but you have to look at it this way. One is there's students that come in, they pick a client, and they have zero knowledge. So they go from zero knowledge in this 11-week time to knowing more about one particular area, fairly narrow, than anyone else in the world when they make their recommendations, right? So they've got to go through that whole process. So this is self-reported with categories that are less than 500 to over, over 10,000, right? So this just kind of gives you an idea. So when it says 3.52, if you look at the circle red stuff, that's out of 5, right? So that's kind of, you can see where it's kind of sitting, but it's about $3,200 is the value. So let's look at kind of some of the other areas as well. So overall project value. Again, this is out of a 5-point scale. It's a Likert scale that we have. And so it met your goals. And this is 98% response rate, about 84% response rate says that it met your goals. And you can see where they sit with that. The second one is quality of the recommendations, 78%. Still close to 80, very, very good, very strong on that, on the types of recommendations that they do. Quality of the overall project, again, 81% said that it was is 4.5 out of 5. Pretty high response rate on that, pretty high quality work that they're doing. If we go to then to the working experience that they have here, were the effective interaction with your clients. So in other words, how do the project teams work with the client? Do they work well? So we have 82%, right? 4.0, 410. Same thing, overall team effectiveness in being able to meet your clients or the client's goals. Again, pretty darn high on that. It's not 100%, be great, but that would be a little out of the question for students coming into a project that they know nothing about. So this one is the lowest one that we have. It's implementation of project recommendations. It runs at about 71%. And this is essentially asking a question in ours that, have you implemented or are you going to implement the recommendations? Now, I have to preface this by saying this is the questionnaire that goes out immediately after the term is done. I have not done a follow-up yet. I have a questionnaire which I will be doing, and I'd be really curious about how those students, how the clients have responded to that project and whether they have. It's also a really kind of hard way to measure it. So we're at 71%, still not bad at all. 70% of the clients are feeling that they're going to be doing something with the recommendations. But it does say is that what determines whether they're going to use recommendations. If there are multiple recommendations, how much of a recommendation does it mean that they do? So the idea that it's 71%, wish it was higher, but I think it's still points to pretty darn good value on that. If we look at some of the other areas, that community and strength, that is, how does it impact the community overall? It's, again, an opinion-oriented one. It's nearly 90% feeling that it does impact the community. And we like that idea because we're not only working with clients, but those clients themselves have an impact. If they make recommendations, have an impact on the community. Indirectly, we feel that we have some impact on that stabilization of neighborhoods, et cetera. Two other areas. Would they participate in another project? So 94% said yes, they would. That's pretty high out of that. So given all of the factors that they've responded to, they're still willing to do that. We've had probably about 10 to 15 clients that have returned. One client has returned 3 times on that. We're more than willing to have you come in again. In fact, it's really good. We'd love to be able to kind of, and it may be a totally different area that you want to look at, but you rise to the top of the heap, be selected. You don't have to go through a vetting process. You're just there, and you'll be selected as soon as we can get you into that program. And then the final one is, would they recommend it to another organization? And that is 90%. Again, a really good sign of what it is that that they do and what it is that we do. So we have reached the end of our presentation, and we do have some questions that are online. So what I will do is read those, and then I can respond to those, and then the audience that's here, I'll be able to do that as well. So we have a question here, and it says, are students exempt from BOLI, minimum wage requirements? That is, as a prospective client company, do we have to assume paying minimum wage or other wages cost for the work the students do on our company project? So one thing that I missed saying is all of our services are 100% free, and from actually paying anything. What's most important is you do pay for it. You pay for it through your time. We ask you to volunteer and engage. That's the only payment that we require. So hopefully that answered that straightforward. We have another person asking, do the client businesses have exclusive rights to any IP that may be developed as part of this program? Really important question. We've worked a lot with developers, app developers, and no, we do not. We do not own that. It is not part of the university. If you're part of the university and it was developed through that, that's a different process. No, you own and the IP that is developed. We have done a bit of development of IP for a couple different projects, but that was strictly for the client. Client had ownership of that. Okay. Another question. We are in Hood River, 60 miles from PSU. Are we considered in the greater Portland area, or are we geographically out of scope for your undergrad project offerings? Well, one is great to be in Hood River. I don't blame you. It's a great place. You are on really the outskirts, and I would have to preface this is that we have had to turn down individuals that have been located in Salem and in Eugene. Now Salem's closer, but we have removed that. What I would suggest to you is to get in touch with me. Give me a little bit more information about that. I want to say it's a fuzzy line, but we really do look to having students be involved. And I do now recall that we did have a journal in Stevenson that actually published in Stevenson that was our one of our clients. So at the one hand is the greater Portland area. That clearly is outside that definition, but we did take them, and it turned out to be a really good project. So I suggest to you, get in touch with me.
It'd be interesting to see if you could do it by video, even.
We could, oh, there we are. That's good. Maybe just as we're doing now. That might be one way to do it. But anyway, get in touch with me. You can look at the slides. You've got ways to do this.
Do we have any other questions, either online or here in the room?
How many companies have been rolled over from fall and winter term to be considered for spring, which in turn would give us an idea of how many new companies you might expect?
That's good. That's really good. So right now, I have probably about 30 eligible clients, okay? I need about 30, probably up to 30 on that. So I'm out recruiting, not knowing exactly how many individuals, but I need to get a number, because what I'm looking for is, again, diversity, right, over that stuff. So I'll be probably, I would say I'll probably have between 30 and 40 clients that we'll select. So that means probably 10 to 15 clients might not be selected on this. I do have to go backwards a little bit, because we oftentimes select clients underway or want to participate. They have been selected to be for a term, and they've had to drop out. We've had a medical problem. We've had a death in the family. We've had people who just said, you know, I just don't have the time that's there. So I always have to have more than there. But I would say that we'll probably end up with 40 to 45 overall. So it's 10 to 15 that we'll probably not select.
And on average, how many are pre-revenue versus operating?
That's a really good point. I would say that probably maybe about a quarter are pre-revenue. Yeah, yeah. And I would say that of that, yeah, they're incorporated probably, yeah, more like about 15% are just not incorporated yet. They're looking for ideas and help. Yes?
Is there a restriction in the length for a startup company? How early in the startup process would be acceptable to taking on a capstone project? So,
like as early as market validation?
Yeah, market validation is, yeah, is pre-revenue, yeah, market validation. That really is there. And the reason for that is that we want to make sure that they've thought through some of the ideas. Granted, they're coming to us for some of the business ideas and business support, right? But at the same time, we do have to have enough of an interaction and understanding of, okay, where they're going to go with this. And that way they can work with them. And we have, and we really do, as I said, one of our certificates is entrepreneurship, right? So we do have students that are very interested, keen on working with startup companies. And it's not that we always have, I can guarantee for any particular client that we're going to have that, but we do have a big interest in that. So, others? Yeah.
I got a bunch.
Okay.
For, students that are either from foreign countries, international students, or students that are intending to get involved internationally, what percentage would you say are covered with people that have that kind of focus? It's
interesting. You look at the demographics of our program. We draw significantly from the Middle East and Southeast Asia. And I will be in, when I'm teaching, I'm often having, although it's interesting, not this term, almost half the students have an international background. That's in my class. I teach at night, and typically that happens. But I would say that it's a very strong component. It's probably between 30 and 40% are international students who have some interest in doing work, either going back home or some way of being able to work with businesses that are here that might then do export-import and those types of, that type of interest.
Okay, related to that on the students, how many have nonprofit organization focus? How many have a technology focus, and that might overlap?
It does overlap, but let's back up here and say we've between 30 and 40% of our clients are nonprofit organizations of some sort. The students themselves having sort of technology-based. When you mean that, meaning do they have computer science or application development or coding?
I'm thinking like the model would be a student who's, say, an engineer at Intel who wants to get business, move into business.
Yeah.
getting there.
I don't know if I can be very accurate with this stuff, but we have actually students that are both computer science majors as well as business majors for precisely what you're talking about, their ability, seeing high tech as being an area of growth. We do have Intel employees, but I can't tell you whether they're coming in as an engineer coming back for an undergraduate business degree.
Have you done any, I wouldn't exactly call them joint projects, but loosely coupled with Capstone and engineering school?
We've been trying to do that. We have yet to put one together.
But
oh my gosh, yeah, we're in touch with them all the time. Yeah.
But
yeah.
they do capstones on the engineering side?
They do.
Also?
In computer science, they have a very active program, capstone program. We've been referred, we've actually referred clients to the computer science program because we realized it was less the business oriented stuff and more the kind of the development itself of the either software or app and so forth.
Okay, some more benefits to, obviously this is a fairly new program, you know, and maybe in 30 years they'll be naming buildings after people that have been involved with this, but there probably is for sustaining yourself in the Oregon system, attention to long-term demonstrate benefits to PSU, to Portland, Oregon, to state of Oregon. Are there, is there sort of a intent to, yes, we would like to make these long-term things happen for the development of the university and of the state?
I'm really keen, and this program's really keen on trying to figure out what that benefit is. Obviously, if we work directly with a client, and I'm hoping I'm answering your question, is we're hoping we're giving them value, they make decisions on that actually has an impact on their business. But more importantly is we're trying to then say, well, what is that impact from the business itself to the community? Whether we're talking about economic development, whether we're talking about neighborhood stabilization, job creation, there's a whole bunch of different metrics that we've been tinkering with trying to figure out how to do that. It's a very hard thing to do, to measure what is a specific decision. Does it actually have a direct financial or social quality impact?
10 years from now, you'll know the answer. But
Hopefully.
right now, you're trying to work towards that answer.
We are, yeah, indeed. That is one of the things that we're really interested in. And my follow-up to the questionnaire is just one step along the way, and then we're trying to figure out how we then measure kind of neighborhood impact. And neighborhood impact is really an important aspect of being able to say, okay, so you're located there. Are you actually hiring local, or can you have some type of kind of multiplier effect of what happens when a business is successful? If we can judge that, I'm an economist, so if we can kind of evaluate what that multiplier effect would be, I think it'd be great. So yeah, I've been a long time. I think we had a good question in the back.
Crowdfunding is becoming pretty popular these days for startups, it seems like. Does your program address that aspect of planning and implementation?
Again, our program is strategic, so we don't do the implementation. However, we've done, I would say, probably 10 projects, under 10 maybe, projects that have dealt with one source of funding would be crowdsourcing. Crowdsourcing is, from 3 years ago, it's just exploded, right? I mean, 3 years ago, you just had a couple different sites, or one site actually. Now you have multiple sites. So it's how one structures that, and you have to be a lot more sophisticated than you were before, because, yeah. So yes, we have, and we've suggested that in our strategic recommendations. And one of the things you mentioned, the kind of the implementation side, while we're not involved in the implementation, every single final project has a roadmap that talks about, okay, what are your next steps, you as a client, and next steps, whether it's, of course, coming back to us for another project or maybe an intern, but more importantly is, our team is leaving, done, what is it that you can do as your next step? And it may be an implementation, dealing with crowdfunding or crowdsourcing of some sort.
On the implementation side, through your program, can you connect clients with students, undergraduate students that might take something on like that as a capstone project?
I think so. One of our, especially if we were talking about the internship program, being able to kind of say, what is our next step? What we're always concerned about is, when there's an intern, is what is the learning objectives that they have. I feel very confident when I place an intern, with a BA 495 client. That's our program, because I've seen what they've done already. I've had interactions with all of them because I recruit all of these. And so, yes, the fact is that you could have that as part of the learning, as part of the internship program, where they're looking at that. Maybe not one of the strategic recommendations, but maybe it's saying, here's one area that we're going to go down. Can you help us set it up? That is a great learning objective. Yes.
Is there a student leader for each team that they get to communicate with? Or?
Yes. What we do is we select the teams. They then have to get together. They elect a single point of contact. We call them a project coordinator, not a project manager. And they're the ones through which this conduit of information goes both ways. So they'll reach out to you within the first week, and they'll say, we're the team, here's who's on our team, here are their backgrounds and what it is that they're kind of their expertise. And through that whole process, they'll be talking to you, emailing questions, etc. However, if you feel comfortable, many of our clients do, as they get to know the students better, they are more willing to hear from others. But that only happens once you have an agreement with the client saying, I can talk to others.
So you don't get deluged with emails from
Yes,
Right, exactly.
that is something we are clearly sensitive to.
One more follow-up on that. The involvement, it's not as like an internship, right? For an internship, there's somewhat of an expectation that I'm teaching them new skills that they don't have. But in this engagement, they have, I'm assuming they have the foundational skills,
Yes.
correct?
Yes, and in fact, one of the way that we look at this between the internship program and the this particular course is they're consultants, and as consultants, they're coming in. Well, normally you hire a consultant that's a subject matter expert, right? Well, they're not, but they try to reflect everything else, and that is they come in with the skills that they're going to have. They organize themselves as such, and most importantly, you hire a consultant to remain independent and objective, and that's what we work on. We work on those skills of being able to say, don't be influenced by things that you might be influenced that may result in a decision that you're making or an analysis that might not be objective or independent. So we really focus on that. They're consultants. You hire them for that reason, and we've done a lot of projects where they've come back and they've given the client information that the client may not have wanted to hear, but it was supporting information about not doing something that would put them in financial jeopardy. And that's happened a number of times.
I guess maybe one of the values is a fresh look.
Fresh
at
look?
the idea or the company. They don't come in with preconceived notions.
The idea behind that. I mean, we've seen where student teams have become kind of have an emotional connection with their client. And oftentimes they can still maintain their independence and objective, but they're really interested in making sure they do as good a job as possible.
And have you had many clients actually hire students who were part of the team?
We have, and in fact, I just got an email today from one of our clients. It was an app maker who hired a client or hired a student immediately after that. So we've had a lot of them. I'd love to be able to document. I'm sure there are more than that, but I'd say that probably, I don't know, there's maybe a few over 10 maybe that we've actually had direct hiring on that. So it's just good. It's really good. Are there other questions? I don't see anything online. Any questions? So maybe that will shut it down.
Maybe that's a wrap. Well, Bill, thank you very much. Thanks everybody for coming.
Thank you.
Those of you who are online, and I think for today, that's a wrap.
Thank you very much. Take care now.
Oh, you just wanted to.
Oh, well,